Hello, everybody. I'm a 40 guy here, and today I wanted to talk about my first range experience in over 4 or 5 years. The first time I went to the range, I had just got my Springfield XDS, and I wanted to take it to the range, but the pistol range was closed for competition. So I had to use my little handgun at the rifle range. And I learned something extremely important during my time at the rifle range with my handgun. It definitely taught me a lot about how my body reacts to stress and how to better focus on myself and what I'm doing when it comes to firearm tactics and things like that. So let's get into it. So I was at the rifle range, and there was two people next to me. Each of them were firing, big sniper rifles and all that other fun stuff. And I drink a lot of coffee. Now, I've noticed that on days that I don't drink coffee, my aim is significantly better. So I was talking to one of my friends who actually was in competition at a very young age and one of the best competition shooters for her age at that time. And most professional shooters do not drink coffee for almost a week or any caffeine a week before their competition. So for an entire week leading up to the competition, they do not consume any caffeine. And so when I was at the range, I noticed that every time that I could feel, the air pressure from the rifle next to me hitting me, just because of how big that caliber was, I could feel the wind hit me every time that they fired a shot. So my hand immediately started going like this, and I actually had to set my gun down for a little bit and chillax and breathe. I mean, obviously, finger off the trigger before you're ready to shoot, always. Especially when you are in. Actually, you know what? Just always. There is no especially in certain situations, just always. Always, always, always keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. So important. Very, very, very important. One of the channels that I highly recommend is the AK guy, Brandon Herrera. If you are very new to firearms, or it's been a super long time since you've handled any or anything like that, watch his Darwin Award videos. Because gun safety is so important. I cannot stress enough how important basic gun safety is. Even if you're somebody that is very anti-gun, who just does not ever want to hold one or look at one, whatever the case may be, you yourself should still know the very fundamentals of gun safety, how to take apart and clean a firearm, and very basic just gun knowledge. And the reason being is that even though you're the type of person that would never really, put themselves inside of a situation where they would find a gun or whatever the case may be, understanding those fundamentals is going to help you tremendously in your life. Cannot stress enough to know basic gun safety, how to take apart and clean, and basic firearm knowledge. Very important. Because even though you will never find yourself inside of a situation where, your buddy hands you a gun or whatever, it is still really good to know in case, at some point in time when your buddies, brings over a gun or whatever, if you don't know proper safety, you could end up being inside of a very dangerous situation without even knowing about it. And it's just good to know. There's no reason why you shouldn't know how to do stuff like that. So let me know down inside of the comments what your take on that is, because I would love to know. Back to this range experience. So I had consumed probably about 7 cups of coffee that day. And I was realizing that, even when I calmed myself down and picked it back up and kept shooting, and then, other people were shooting around me, I started progressively getting a little bit more comfortable with it. Now, here's the biggest reason why I advocate, once you become a little bit more experienced, to go to the rifle range and practice with your handgun. Because the stress of having high caliber rounds around you going off, it triggers a fear response to your body almost instantly. And so when you conceal carry and you find yourself inside of a situation where, gunshots and stuff like that are going off and you may have to pull and fire, understanding how your body is going to react to that very stressful situation is extremely important, and being able to calm yourself down enough to be able to engage in that situation helped me so much throughout my time of now shooting firearms and rifles and all of that stuff. That one experience at the range changed my entire outlook on everything that has to do with concealed carry, everything that has to do with home defense. My entire outlook has changed ever since I just spent a little bit of time. It was only one time I went to the rifle range and was practicing with my pistol. Because I have now gotten so used to shooting my handguns with all of this other noise and all these other people, and especially when I'm taking my girlfriend out to the range and stuff too, and I'm teaching her how to shoot, my general awareness has never been better after just that one experience of going to the rifle range. And even though I was a little bit shaky, I was still practicing all of the fundamentals for gun safety. And I was actually so excited when I was hitting, a target with my tiny subcompact at, 40, 50 yards down. Because I was practicing with my P226 Legion at about 30 yards, but I was almost trying to double that at the rifle range with my handgun. And, my accuracy was not great, and it didn't have to be, because treating it like I'm just gonna say it. Treating it like a horror video game. Like you're playing on your computer or your Xbox or whatever, and something scares you and you immediately flick. Right? You flick to, the side or whatever, and now you're not even aware of anything anymore. That fear response is almost what it was like. Obviously I was 100% safe. I didn't like start waving my gun around or anything like that. It's not what I'm getting at. What I'm trying to focus on is the fact that my fear and adrenaline was extremely high due to the fact of the higher caliber firearms around me. So if you are just a little bit more experienced, I would 100% recommend going to the rifle range and practicing there. 100%. Because your focus will have to be extremely increased, your breathing has to be very maintained, and the first time is going to be very stressful and a little bit scary, and that's what you want it to be. Because don't you think that having a live shooter situation isn't going to be extremely stressful and scary? Exactly. So 100% practice at the rifle range with your handgun. I promise you, 100% promise you, it'll be a very important step. Also, if you're brand new when it comes to shooting firearms, only put one inside of the magazine. So if you have your magazine, right, pretend that this is a bullet. Load one bullet into your magazine, pop it in, pull it back, and just practice with one round. For about your first 5-10 rounds, just practice with one. And then once you become more familiar and a little bit more comfortable, then you load 2, then 3, and then, slightly go higher. Because you do not want to accidentally get scared and bump fire it, or it's just a very important step. I mean, especially if you haven't ever shot a gun before, one round is so useful for just basic gun safety reviewing and having a great time at the range and having a safe experience during one of your first times at a range. Like I said, I hadn't shot a gun in almost like 7 or 8 years prior to me, now being an adult. And so if you're a little bit nervous because it's been a long time since you've handled a gun, one round. It's not a contest. Especially when you're dealing with calibers that you've never fired before. Like my first time shooting my 40 Smith & Wesson, I wasn't sure what the recoil was going to be like. My first time shooting a 9mm, I didn't know what the recoil was going to be like. My first time shooting my 45, that recoil, I was prepared for it because I've shot smaller calibers. And so I already knew how to properly hold it and, to softly squeeze the trigger and everything like that, and was more prepared, but I still only put one in my first time. Just in case anything did happen with my new firearm. Let's just say that I got a faulty round and it malfunctioned the first time. It's going to be one of those things where you have to come in it with a perspective of safety, and one in the chamber for your first time is, one inside the magazine for your first time is a very good, safe step to relearning gun safety. And I hope that this video was educational for you. I try to have a very educational mindset when it comes to this channel. So I'll be talking a little bit more about other range experiences and stuff like that I have inside of the future. And like always, I hope you all have a fantastic day.